Hello and welcome everyone to the Polity Primer series of Drishti IAS English. I am Pragya. This is the last episode of our constitutional amendment series. In the constitutional amendment series, we have discussed the major constitutional amendments in a very comprehensive manner. Today also we have a very crucial constitutional amendment to discuss that has ensured representation for women in politics. And yes, you are right. I am talking about the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2023, popularly known as the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam of 2023. In this discussion, we are firstly going to study about the historical background of women's reservation. Then we are also going to examine what is the 106th Constitutional Amendment. Then we are also going to see the constitutional changes that have been introduced by the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act in our Indian Constitution. And lastly, we are going to discuss a practice question for your prelims examination. So if I talk about the background of our today's topic, the 127th Constitutional Amendment Bill has received the assent of our Honorable President in the year 2023. And now this is known as the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act, Women's Reservation Act, or the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam of 2023, and this has ensured that women get 33% of reservation of seats in the Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies. So let us firstly discuss that what is the historical background of women's reservation in India. So if I talk about the pre-independence period, in 1931, three female activists penned a letter to the British Prime Minister urging for political representation for women amidst the national movement. So this was a long demand that was due. We have been demanding this since pre-independence time. So the year was 1931. And women were already demanding that yes, we should be equally represented in the field of politics. Then the Government of India Act of 1935 granted women separate electorates but did not allocate seats in the legislature, thereby promoting political participation for women. So yes, for their political participations, they were granted separate electorates, but they did not get any kind of reserved seats in the legislatures, and that was a need at that point of time as well, that was being felt continuously, that yes, our women are not adequately represented in the legislatures. If you talk about the current status of women representation in legislature, so in the Lok Sabha, only 15% of women are legislators, okay. And if you talk about the state legislative assemblies, that has even a grim picture, even more grim picture, okay. So only 9% of women are legislators. So yes, that is a demand that was long overdue for women, that yes, we need equal representation in the field of politics. Moving forward, the Constituent Assembly debates addressed women's reservation, but it was rejected due to the belief that a democracy should ensure representation for all groups. But that is a flawed concept. I'll explain you why. Article 14 of our Indian Constitution says that unequals cannot be treated equally. So women were unequal at that point of time. They did not have any kind of adequate representation, okay. And India was a predominantly patriarchal society. We still are a patriarchal society. So yes, even after our constitution was formed, we were not given any kind of representation in the political field, any kind of reservation in the legislatures. Then if you talk about the post-independence period, there was a committee of the status of women 1971 that recommended women's reservation. Then the National Perspective Plan for Women in 1988 also recommended that yes, women should get representation. And finally, the 73rd and the 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts ensured reservation for women in local and urban bodies elections. Okay, they also ensure that yes, women are represented equally in the urban and local bodies. Moving forward, let us examine what is the 106th Constitutional Amendment. So, the Constitution 106th Amendment Act 2023 reserves 1/3 of all seats for women in Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies and the Legislative Assembly of the National Capital Territory of Delhi, including those reserved for scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe community. So, basically it is giving representation to women in politics. The reservation will be effected after the publication of the census conducted following the Act's commencement and endures for a 15-year period with potential extension determined by the parliamentary action. So, this Constitution Amendment Act, okay, the Women's Reservation Act has not been implemented as of now. Firstly, we'll have to conduct a census, and census in India is long overdue. So, once the census is conducted, once we conduct a delimitation exercise, we'll implement this women's reservation. And this is the criticism that this 106th Constitutional Amendment is receiving, that yes, you have granted them representation, but if you're not implementing it, what's the use of granting them? And that is why the political parties are pushing for census. They are saying that yes, implement the bill, and the bill only has a 15-year time period. After this, it is subject to extension by parliamentary action. Moving forward, let us examine the constitutional changes that have been brought in our Indian Constitution through this amendment. So, firstly, reservation for women in the lower house of the parliament, also known as the Lok Sabha. So, for this purpose, Article 330 Clause A has been inserted. 1/3 of the total number of seats reserved under Article 330 Clause 2 will be reserved for women belonging to the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribes. And 1/3 of the seats that have to be filled by direct election will be reserved for women, including the number of seats reserved for women belonging to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Okay, so all of the women to whichever category they belong, either they belong to the general category or either they belong to the SC and ST category, they are being given equal representation. They are being given equal reservation in the Lok Sabha. Moving forward, reservation of seats for women in the Legislative Assembly of every state. So, same thing, 1/3 of the total number of seats reserved under Article 332 Clause 3 will be reserved for women belonging to the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribes, and 1/3 of the seats that have to be filled by direct election will be reserved for women, including the number of seats reserved for women belonging to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe. And for this and for fulfilling this purpose, Article 332 Clause A has been inserted in our Indian Constitution. Moving forward, reservation of seats for women in Legislative Assembly of Delhi. So, for ensuring this, various changes have been made in Article 239 Clause AA. Okay, so as to ensure women representation in the Legislative Assembly for the National Capital Territory of Delhi. So, 1/3 of the seats for scheduled castes will be reserved for women, and 1/3 of the seats that have to be filled by direct election will be reserved for women, including women belonging to the scheduled caste. Okay, so these are the representations that women will receive in politics if once this 106th Constitutional Amendment Act is implemented once this Women's Reservation Act comes into force. So with this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen the historical background of women representation in India. We have seen that yes, this demand was long overdue. There were previous bills that were being tabled in the parliament, but they lapsed due to certain political things. Okay, they were not being successful. Finally, we had the 127th constitutional amendment bill that finally received the President of India, and finally there is an equal representation of women in politics. They are finally entering politics. But as of now, if you'll ask me, this bill cannot be implemented because we have not conducted a delimitation exercise and we are still not conducting census. So first of all, we need to conduct a census and then we have to conduct a delimitation exercise for this bill to be implemented. Now let us discuss a question which I asked you in my previous session. So the question is, consider the following statements. Your statement number 1 was 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act 2018 provides constitutional status to the National Commission for Backward Classes, or the NCBC. National Commission for Backward Classes should be consulted on policy matter, will not apply to the state lists of SEBCs. So which of these statements given above is are correct? Your options were, option A was 1 only, option B was 2 only, option C was both 1 and 2, and option D was none of the above. So a correct answer for this question is option C. Both of these statements are correct. After the enactment of 105th Constitutional Amendment Act, National Commission for Backward Classes cannot be consulted if the state is identifying the socially and educationally backward classes. So it is not necessary for them to consult the National Commission for Backward Classes. Now, this is a question from our today's discussion. So the question is, consider the following statements. Your statement number 1 is, the 106th Amendment to the Constitution enacted in 2023 grants 33% reservation to women in politics. Your statement number 2 is, the Parliament may by law determine the periodic rotation of seats reserved for women after each subsequent delimitation. So which of these statements given above is are correct? Your options are, option A is 1 only, option B is 2 only, option C is both 1 and 2, and option D is none of the above. So this answer will be given by you to me in the comment box below. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any feedback regarding this session, go drop it in the comment box below. If you liked today's discussion and found it to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such interesting updates. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.